What's going on, Jerome's? So it's so weird. Like you should feel good about when your team wins, but when it's sort of an ugly ass win, the way that the Vikings took care of the crooked Chicago Bears, 19-13, it's it's one of those spots where it's like you wish it was more impressive, right? You wish that it was an absolute beatdown. You wish that, frankly, if Justin Fields had stayed in the game, I think the Vikings win pretty handily. But it sort of is what it is, and a win is a win is a win, as we said many times last year. And for the Vikings, I mean, it's been a frustrating season. I mean, yeah, allegedly 2-4, but the four wins. I mean, the Vikings were a clown part away from beating the Bucks, beating the Eagles, beating the Chiefs, and beating the Chargers. And what's impressive is like, I mean, two of those losses were against the Super Bowl participants last year, and the Vikings just gave it away against the Chiefs and the Eagles. And frankly, they should have won both of those games, and that certainly would have flipped around the narrative of the 2023 Vikings. And the thing is, it's all it is a play here, a play there, and all these games have been single score. And people point out, well, where's the Vikings signature win? Like, where's the blowout win at Carolina? Where's the blowout win at Chicago? I understand that, but also on the other hand, where's the Vikings blowout loss? Where is it? It's not like the Vikings lost to the Bucks by 40. It's not like the Eagles boat raced the Vikings 38-7. That's still too soon. It's not like the Chiefs stomped the Vikings out. It's not like Herbert and the Chargers, beat the Vikings at home in their place by 3 touchdowns. It isn't. It isn't. And the thing about it is everyone who is a Vikings fan understands the problem with this team. They literally cannot hang on to the ball, whether it's ball security or dropping Kirk Cousins passes. 12 in the last 2 games. It's inexcusable. And yes, the degree of difficulty is going up without Justin friggin' Jefferson, but he'll be back at some point. And I mean, as the Browns showed, the Niners can get got. And I know they'd be like, oh, but it was all injuries. All right, so you're telling me that the Justin Jefferson injury doesn't factor in for the Vikings? You're telling me that the Davenport injury, again, doesn't factor in for the Vikings? So again, injuries are an excuse for every other single team, but not the Vikings. That's usually how it goes. And what sort of bugs me, and we've voiced this a lot, about, oh, you should tank and get a better draft pick. You should just completely pack in the season. Whereas, like, as long as the Vikings still have breath in their lungs, as long as they're not mathematically eliminated, I'm all in. Go get the win on Sunday. I'm about to whip somebody's ass. But it did feel like, with the season teetering at 1-4, if the Vikings fell to 1-5, that may be the sound of the fat lady singing, but it's a spot where there was a lot of Vikings fans who were not happy that the Vikings won on the road in Chicago against a divisional foe on Sunday. And that's messed up. That's messed up. I understand where, hey, if you lose this game week 18 and it's the difference between the number 2 overall pick, sure, why not? But I mean, hell, there's people when the Vikings were 5-1 last year, just like, you know what? If we lose out 5-12, could get us a draft pick. No. It's like what Herm Edwards said: you play to win the game, and that does matter. And the thing about it is, like, we've been over this. I feel like people who just want teams to tank, it's too simplistic, it's too reductive of an argument. Hey, higher draft pick means that you do better. And we see in the comments, it's like, oh, well, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow and Cam Newton and Andrew Luck were number 1 overall picks. Zero. Goose egg, D'Angelo Russell, Super Bowl wins amongst them. And also, when people point out the value of number 1, they completely just ignore, Jared Goff. They ignore, Jared Goff on the Rams. He's actually pretty okay with the Lions, apparently. They ignore Jamarcus Russell. They ignore Sam Bradford, even though Bradford stayed healthy, but they ignored Jameis and Baker and Kyler. And if you extend it to the number 2 overall picks, they ignored Trubisky and Wentz and Mariota. And if you extend it to number 3 overall, they ignored Trey Lance and Sam Darnold and blah, 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 blah. It's like, you draft where you draft, and it doesn't matter. And I understand that Caleb Williams is seen as a generational can't-miss prospect. How do you do on Saturday? How do you do on Saturday against Notre Dame, who has a legit pass rush? And could you see that version of Caleb Williams in the NFL? It's a non-zero chance, right? And it's such an inexact science, and there's so many damn good quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, this is feels like we repeat ourselves 17,000 times, but this is a draft where you do not need to be in the stratosphere to get your guy, right? So you look at Drake May, you look at Penix, you look at Bo Nix, you look at Quinn Ewers, you look at J.J. McCarthy, you look at Shador Sanders, you look at Jaden Daniels. You look at there's going to be so many damn quarterbacks in this class where it doesn't matter. And plus, as we said a bunch, like you can trade up, you can maneuver and get your guy. Oh, but you have a high draft pick, you can just take your guy. Sure, yes, but it's so funny. Like people hate Kwesi, like straight up, like they hate Kwesi, but they sure trust him to select the number one overall pick because even if the Vikings straight up end up with the number one overall pick, the Vikings aren't firing Kwesi. They ain't gonna do it. I do not see it happening. It's not in the Wilfs' DNA. They want stability. Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi, they won the division last year, won 13 games. That buys them time. That puts them on scholarship. So you want a GM that you do not like, you do not trust to handle the number one pick and pick the correct guy between Caleb Williams, Drake May, and whoever. Or, Vikings end up with a top 5 pick. Like, you trust them. It's such a oxymoronic thing. And also, I mean, the Vikings are completely not dead. That's the thing too, because like we said, the Vikings are a clown fart away from beating the Bucks, beating the Eagles, beating the Chargers, as well as beating the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, right? And you could say a 2-4, they're whatever, but I mean the Vikings, they welcome in the Niners. They're going to be underdogs. Underdogs have won, as we saw on Sunday, man. So believe in something. Get your ish together. And even without Justin freaking Jefferson, I do not care. Just Danielle Hunter, Harrison Smith, Kirk Cousins, TJ, Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne stepping their ish up and getting a big time win, statement win on national television to all the haters and the losers who, by the way, they're going to bring up Kirk Cousins' Monday night record, which it's so convenient where when Kirk's record is bad, it's QB wins. But when the Vikings won 13 games last year, the team's winning. That whole thing. But it's okay. It's okay, man. But shock the world, go up to Green Bay, whoop some ass, go to Atlanta, whoop some ass. I mean, the Vikings, we pointed out, weeks 8 to 14 could easily go 4-2, 5-1 minimum. So this team is not dead yet. And I understand people say, well, I'm not satisfied with just making the playoffs and then losing in the first round. Who is? Who is? But if you think that the solution is just to have one down year and rise like a phoenix, and it, like historically, it is proven not to be the case because it does not matter how high you draft. If you're not developing your players, if you're not hitting on them, if you're not getting the right guys for your scheme, it doesn't matter. It does not matter in the slightest. So, the Vikings, they do need to find the quarterback of the future. And also, if they re-sign Kirk, that does not preclude them from drafting a quarterback in the first, second, third round. And maybe more importantly, they got to rebuild the defensive line, man. Like, I'm honestly sick and tired of only Danielle Hunter being the only consistent pass rusher. I'm tired of the Vikings not being able to stop the run. I'm tired of the Vikings getting in the line of scrimmage, push back 4 or 5 yards every single play. That's the Vikings' glaring hole. And I understand everyone wants to complain about Kirk because he's the quarterback, he's whatever, but Kirk doesn't play defense. Kirk doesn't stop the run. Kirk doesn't rush the other team's quarterback. That's where the Vikings are deficient. That's where they do need to address a lot of things this coming off season. But this team is plucky. This team is way too talented. And also, I understand people who want the team to tank. They're accidentally going to win 6, 7, 8 games. That's just how the cookie crumbles. So hopefully this team can get their ish together. Hopefully Kevin O'Connell can progress as a head coach. We haven't seen it yet. Just all the soft skills of being a game manager, of being a personnel manager, of making in-game adjustments, of making halftime adjustments. You don't see it. You don't see it. I know that he's buddy-buddy with the players and they built like a culture of friendship and Ted Lasso and stuff, but at a certain point you got to get results. And the Vikings, at times, they seem completely unprepared or underprepared for situational football. And that comes down to coaching. That comes down to Kevin O'Connell. So we'll see. But you play to win the game. Beat the Niners, go on the road, beat the Packers' ass. All of a sudden, you're 4-4. All of a sudden, JJ's hamstring gets a little bit better. And maybe he comes back against the Saints. And all of a sudden, this team could be very dangerous. Because, again, losing is not something you can just turn off. Look at all the teams that have been consistently drafting in the top 5 over the last couple of decades, and they can't just turn it on. It's a cultural thing. And young teams, which the Vikings are, if you lap off some of the veterans at heart, they have to get used to winning games. They have to find a way to win games. They did it last year. They got to figure out how to do it this year. And losing, you really get comfortable with losing. And you've seen franchises over and over and over again. They can't, even though they have high draft picks, which apparently should be a direct correlation to success, it's not. Because they have a culture of losing. They can't develop players. They can't attract free agents. Their coaches are horrible, and that's it. So play to win the game. It's like the Lions. I mean, respect to the Lions, where they started out 1-6 last year. A lot of fans were just like, oh, we'll just tank. That's the way that we always do. We'll end up with the top 5 pick again. That's what we do because we're Lions. But then they finished strong. Yes, they missed the playoffs at 8-9, but also it's like, hey, by definition, is that a failure? By a lot of people, as it is. I'm not satisfied going 8-9 and miss the playoffs. No. And guess what? They carried that momentum over this year, and they're rocking. They're rolling. We're still going to beat their ass twice, but that's beside the point. So, again, it's a cultural thing. Winning begets winning. And you draft where you draft, doesn't matter. Play to win the game. That's all, man. That's all. Or at minimum, don't piss on people's parades or actually rooting for their favorite team to win a game. I know it's such a novel concept. It's like, 60-year-old grandma knitting and watching the game. Oh, I hope the boys do well today. Yeah, so don't get all up in her mentions. Be like, oh, actually, they should have lost to improve draft position. Yeah, because it really matters drafting 13 versus 12. Anyways, that's it. Raw, real garage rant. Let's go, babe.